Welcome. Welcome to Cooking Made Simple. My name is Kelly, and you're cooking with Chef Kelly Armetta. And today I like to make for you a roast chicken. So let's get started. So first thing I like to say, I hope you guys are enjoying everything we've been doing so far and learning a couple of great tips. I know I say it's simple, and it is when you break them down individually, but I think it's important for you to know that simplicity is really at the core of what we're doing. And that's why I wanted to teach you a basic roast chicken. Now, I know I say basic and I know I say kind of simple, but I got a couple of little things I'm going to throw at you that are slightly different. But we'll talk about the concepts of them, and I think you'll really appreciate what we're going to do. So, the first thing we're going to offer you today is a salt roasted chicken. So we're going to do a salt crust, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And the second thing we're going to do today is a spatchcock chicken, which is basically a chicken that's been butterflied, right? And it cooks a little bit differently, it cooks a little faster, it has a different feel to it. And they both have their purposes, and we'll talk about those a little bit later as we get into them. So let's get started. First thing we need to do is we need to get our chicken in the oven. And the chicken takes a little bit of time. So I want to get started with that. So let me introduce you to our friends here, our two birds that we have. Okay. I got a nice young chicken, and the reason why I got a young chicken, they tend to be a little bit more on the tender side. Okay. You can tell they're a little bit of corn fed because they have a little yellowish tint to their skin, right? Typically, they'll feed them with corn, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I know there's a lot of controversy right now with it, but it has a nicer flavor to it. So it's a corn-fed chicken, and you want to maybe sometimes you might want to get an organic chicken or you want an air-dried chicken. What does that all mean? And really, it really depends on how much you want to spend, how they're handled. But these particular chickens here are young. They're corn-fed, okay, and they're air-cooled. And what does that mean? So when they slaughter a chicken, they drain them and they cool them in these big fans. Imagine these fans hanging, and you got the chickens hanging from there. And what happens is that when they're air cooled, they tend to be a little bit better flavor, right? When they're other chickens that are not air cooled, they're put in ice water. And when they put them in ice water, what happens is that they get washed out, but a lot of that water gets contaminated, and it sounds exactly what it sounds like, right? It is. It's just not. It doesn't seem very appetizing. But when you have an air-cooled chicken, okay, it tends to be a little drier, it tends to be a little richer because they don't want to wash out that flavor, and it seems to be a little bit healthier. There's nothing wrong with that. You've probably been eating your whole life the water-cooled, but there is a difference. So we have these nice young chickens here, and I'm going to show you. I got this nice one here. They're probably about anywhere between 7.5 to 8 pounds or so. Okay, we're going to move this guy here, and we're going to do this one first. Okay, and what I want to talk about is tying a chicken. All right, I'm not tying a chicken today. And a lot of chefs, if you go online, you go on YouTube, you'll see them truss a chicken, and that's important, right? And the reason why you want to do that is you want to get them to they cook evenly, right? They get pushed up a little bit, right? See how that works? And they hold this shape so the breast cooks evenly with the legs. Simple. But you're starting to tie it, you're going around, what are you doing? You can tie it like this, and you can do all that stuff there. It's just work that you don't need to do. I'm going to show you a quick, simple method to avoid that. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, this is a very simple chicken. I want to get it going because we got to put it in the oven, right? And then I got to serve it to you. So the first thing we're going to do, we have our chicken here, we have wings. We're going to put these guys under, right? That's going to raise it up just a little bit. Then a little trick right here. You try to take this part with the most skin on it. Okay? You see there's a little skin here. This one has more skin. And we're going to make a little slit in here. Okay? Right there. And before we do that, make sure there's enough room in the cavity. And I should mention that we washed the chicken. We took out the neck, right? I took out the neck. We washed it, right? Now I got that slit, as I said to you, and very simply, we're going to take this drumstick right here, put it underneath that slit, and this one here, right over it, and you're going to stick this inside here. It slips a little bit, but once you get the hang of it, it gets in there, okay? And you may rip it, and it's okay, but once you get this in here, you get through that membrane, you got this nice little puffiness right there. So you see that? Simple. You're going to watch everything on TV, and they're going to tie it, and they're going to flip it over, and they're going to do these things, and you're going to go, what am I doing here? I made a little slit. I put one on top of the other. Simple. Nothing else to do there. Okay? So, now I notice I got this little red cutting board. It's a plastic one. When I cut chicken, I like to use something like this because it's easier to wash. When you do something with wood, you get those little grooves in it. You kind of get bacteria. So if you don't wash it really good, you want to be careful with that. All right, so we have our chicken here, very simple. We haven't done anything fancy to it. All right, all we do is that one slit. Remember that. All we do is that one slit. All right, so I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to be right back, and I'm going to show you what to do next. And we're going to talk about safety in a second. Okay, welcome back, guys. So I washed my hands. And before we move on, let's talk about safety, right? A lot of foodborne illness, particularly with E. coli and salmonella, happens a lot from home. People don't realize that. Maybe they didn't handle the chicken right, or they didn't handle their eggs right. So the simple thing to do is make sure you're cleaning really well. Clean it in your sink, and when you're in the sink, then wash your sink up really good. A nice plastic cutting board so it's easier to work with. Wash your hands in between touching your containers, right? And I have an apron on, and I'm going to cut the chicken next, and I'll show you about that in a second. But I like to have the apron, if it splashes, I take it off. It's not on my regular clothes. So once I'm done with my cutting, I take my apron off. I don't have any raw stuff that might have splashed on me. Because now if I use my regular clothes and I'm sitting down for dinner, I'm touching things. So you want to minimize the exposure or the risk, okay? So that's what I want to mention. All right, so we got our chicken here, right? We tucked it, we made that little slit. We put one over the other. We put the wing bones up here. Now we're going to do something very kind of interesting, right? First thing we're going to hit it with a lot of pepper, black pepper. And you could omit this part if you want. You don't necessarily need to put pepper on it, but I like it, okay? All around. Now remember, whatever seasoning you put on top is not going to go through the skin, okay? So you don't have to worry about that. Next thing we'll do is we're going to take a little lemon here, and we have a dual purpose with the lemon, okay? We got a salt crusted, as I mentioned, so we're going to put a lot of salt. Oh my goodness, 2 or 3 cups of salt, whatever that is, right? So I'm going to squeeze the juice in here. I don't care if the seeds are in there. The seeds, we're not going to eat this, okay? But I'm going to take this, I'm going to stick it inside the cavity, right? Same one here. It's going to permeate as it cooks, right? We've got this nice juice in here. Now I'm going to take a little bit of rosemary and thyme, okay? Maybe a couple of pieces of garlic. Stick this guy in here, break them, stick them inside the cavity. What they do is as they cook, they perfume inside there. Really makes a nice flavor. You could throw a couple of pieces of garlic cloves if you want. Just crush them lightly, stick them inside. And if you don't have it, it's okay. You don't have to do that. All right. So now we got our salt with our lemon in it, right? So the salt is nice and wet now, kind of like a sea salt, like a gray Mediterranean sea salt. It's a little wet, okay? And watch this. We're going to put this all on top. I'm going to cover the really big pieces of exposed meat where you're going to eat. Not so worry about the bone or the wing down here, okay? And what this is going to do, and the reason why I'm doing this, is that it keeps the chicken dry and locks the moisture inside. Now, from a technical standpoint, I would normally make a big mound and wrap it, right? They do this a lot in South America and parts of Europe, Italy and France. They cover with it and they put it in a big wood burning oven. And it kind of protects the chicken on the outside from that high heat. And then it keeps the moisture locked inside. But that would be really encased and covered, okay? We don't have to worry about that type of heat, so it doesn't have to be all this way. But we put it like this, very simply, okay? You get a little bit of this salt down here. I'm just going to put this up because that's all good stuff, right? And I'm going to put this right back and try and get it on top, all right? So simple, right? So far, so good, right? Nothing difficult. Kind of fun, a little different, right? We're going to take this onion here. I just cut the onion in half. I left the skin on it because what happens is that this skin is going to protect the onion a little bit, right? So they caramelize. They kind of sit right here. They permeate, and we'll eat that onion later, right? So the skin protects it. So you got the salt protecting the chicken, and you got the skin protecting the onion, okay? So we got a very simple salt roasted chicken. We put lemon, we put pepper, right? And now we're ready to put this guy in the oven. How long is it going to take? Well, you're going to put your oven around 400 degrees. Depends if you've got a fan or not. But you want a higher temperature because you got the salt protecting it, right? So the theory is that it kind of draws out a little moisture on the top, but keeps the moisture on the interior and has a deeper, richer flavor. Okay, so we're going to do this one. We're going to put this in the oven. Okay. All right, welcome back, guys. So we put the chicken in the oven with the salt. It's working. It's doing what it needs to be doing. It's going to cook nice, right? 400 degrees. It's gonna kind of absorb that moisture, but it's also going to keep the stuff inside there. Okay, we talked about the lemon and the salt going all over it. Let that go. Could take you about an hour and 15 minutes. Really depends on the oven. We will talk about temperature in a little bit. All right, let's start with the next thing, spatchcock. What a crazy word. What does that mean? Well, we're going to take this chicken and we're essentially going to butterfly it. You know, there's other things to do to it, but we're going to make the easiest way possible. Again, make it simple, right? But so I got this little neck that I pulled out, and there's nothing. Just put it in here, and we're going to use some chicken stock. We could use the bone broth, or we can use regular chicken stock, and we're gonna fortify it. Okay. So what does that mean, fortify it? So what that means is that we're going to take some the stock and the additional bones or meat or something and kind of give them more intensity, and that's what we're doing. It's just why get rid of it? It's good flavor. Maybe we'll put a little splash of water in it so it cooks out, and then we're going to use it later on as a little finishing sauce. Okay, so simple enough. So I'm just going to add a little water to this and let this guy go. I'm not really doing much to it. I'm not looking to make a deep cooking out of it. It's not necessary. All right, so spatchcock. So we got a couple things going on here. Before we start working on the chicken here, okay, actually let's leave this here. Before we start working on the chicken here, I got a nice cast iron pan. And the reason why you want to spatchcock a chicken or really butterfly the chicken is what we're doing, is so it cooks evenly, right? It cooks faster and it cooks evenly. So when you do it this way, you kind of get a nice crispiness in the skin. So opposite of what we're going to do now with the salt. The salt's going to keep the skin from getting crispy, but that's okay because it's going to taste amazing. But we're going to get this nice and hot. So this cast iron skillet, two things. One is because it's nice and thick, it distributes the heat evenly. And two, it holds up, right? It sears really well, holds up to this long process of cooking. This will make its way in the oven as well. So we'll sear it. We got it on here. We got it on the top of the stove. So what you can do if you want is you put your oven on. You preheat in your oven anyway. You can put your pan in the oven. I got a little bit of heat up here, so I got additional heat. But you put your pan in and get hot. We're gonna cut the chicken. We're gonna put a little seasoning on it. We're gonna start to sear it. Okay. We'll put it halfway in. We'll take it out. We'll add some vegetables. Put it back in, and we're done. I know that sounds simple, but it is. All right, so next, what we're going to do here. All right, we got our chicken here. So we're going to we're going to cut it from the back here. Now, if you're ambitious and you want to try this, by all means do it. So I'm just going to go right down this backbone, right, all the way to the neck. And now, remember I said I got that stock going there, right? All this stuff is here. Put it inside here, cook it up. Now, if you don't want to cook it, save them. After you get a few of them, put them in the freezer, and you make a nice soup out of it. So in the simplest terms right here, so now you can either do a couple things. You can kind of snap it, right? I like to actually kind of break it with my knife a little bit. Just kind of cut down this cartilage right there, and it opens it up a little bit, right? I break the leg. Some people like to kind of score it a little bit so the heat gets in there, okay? So I take this little wing tip out. Again, I would freeze it or put it in the stock in this case, because this is going to burn on me, so I'm going to make my stock. And then second, I like to do, very simply, is right from here, is this, with the heel of the knife, it's nice and thick. Smash it right on this little knuckle right here, this joint. And essentially, that's all you need to do. Now, a lot of times I like to just kind of, so it cooks evenly, just open this up here a little bit and make sure that it's not connected. Some people take it out. Sometimes I take the rib bone out. You don't have to do all that. It's not necessary. But I take the rib bone out so the bone's not there. I put it in here, and now it's going to cook evenly, and I don't have that rib bone. Now, here's the thing. The only thing you really have to do, I know I'm cutting it a little bit, is take the backbone out right down the middle. So the breast is on top, backbone's behind it. You take it down, kind of snap that breast plate, kind of break the bones here, and that's essentially all you need to do. That's it. All right, so we'll come and clean that up in a minute, okay, because now we're going to do something else. So we're going to season with a little salt and pepper and oil, right? Our pan's getting nice and hot. Okay. Our pan's getting nice and hot. We're going to make a little mixture. We're going to do a double thing here. We're going to make a little bit of the oil, right? Like that. We're going to put some pepper. Right? Some salt. Put a little bit more. I'm being a little cheap there after what I just did earlier, right? All right, so now we're going to rub this up here. We got this nice oil inside here. I got that little slit so the heat kind of penetrates a little bit. I'm really not going to do too much of it because the skin will kind of pull back anyway. All right, so we rub this on here like this. We kind of massaged it in. We got the oil, salt, and pepper on it. Nothing else, right? Pretty simple so far. We're going to make sure our pan's nice and hot, okay? And just to help it along, I'll get a little extra oil in there. And when it kind of runs at a certain way, I can tell by how it shimmers and how it runs. I know it's ready to go. All right, I can smell it. Olive oil starts to really become vibrant when you heat it up. So once I smell that, I know it's good. And then what's important is that we want to hear that sizzle when it goes in there. That's going to be the sear. Okay? So let's see if it gets it in there. Good to go. Now you may want to get your fan on. Okay, you may want to get your fan on when you're doing this because you don't want to smoke your kitchen. But all you're really doing is searing one side, turning it over, okay, and then you're just going to put it in the oven. We're going to add some vegetables shortly, and we'll show you about that in a minute. So what's important now I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up, and I'm going to get ready for my vegetables. So again, we'll see you when we come back. Hi guys, welcome back. All right, so we got our spatchcock chicken already starting to sear. I'm ready to turn it over, okay? And then we're going to add some vegetables and put this guy in the oven. So we got a good sear, a little roastiness happened there, right? So while we're waiting for this, shut this up, and we're going to put this in the oven for a few minutes while we cut some vegetables. So we're going to cook. We're doing a few things at once, right? We got the chicken going. We seared one side. We seasoned it. We seared one side. We turn it over, put it in the oven, cut some vegetables, come back out. We'll throw the vegetables in there. You know, the timing's going to be fine. And like I've talked about before in the past, if your vegetables are a little underdone, it's okay. You eat raw vegetables plenty of times, right? You eat think of crudité and salads that you put stuff on it. So as long as the chicken's cooked, that's what we have to worry about. All right, so let's go cut some vegetables. We'll come back, bring this chicken out of the oven. We'll get some vegetables in there, and we'll put it out. Now, I also got our stock going here. Remember, I'm fortifying it, as we call it. And since I got a couple of little things available here, we might as well just kind of add to it, right? Let's throw some thyme in there. I get that in a little parsley leaves. Okay, it doesn't hurt. We're going to chop the stuff anyway, so I already have it. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't worry about it so much. Okay. All right. So what do I got for vegetables? Listen, when I cook and when I design a menu in at the hotel or where I'm doing, I like to have a complete meal. I like my vegetables. I like my potatoes, my starch on the plate. So I design menus with all that in there. So I got some nice fingerling potatoes. I got some Vidalia onions here. I got some beets, okay? These beet greens which we're gonna use, do not let these go to waste. We're gonna saute these up a little bit later, okay? They're high in folic acid, all kinds of great nutrients to them, okay? So these are all good. I washed this already, okay? And what I wanna tell you about the beets in particular, we'll come back to that. I don't wanna make this red. So we got our onion here, right? Vidalia onion. We don't need this one with the stamp on it, the sticker. But I'm going to leave the skin on it. And the skin is kind of interesting because it's going to protect the onion as it cooks. We'll just peel that off. It's nice rustic. Okay? So we got our onion here. We're going to take the fingerling potatoes. Just cut those in half. The reason why they're called fingerlings because they look like fingers. Fat fingers for sure. Okay? So you don't need to just wash them up a little bit. All this skin on them, they're all completely edible. It's great. Okay, so we have our potatoes, our onions, and our beets. I take the tops off here. I leave the skin on the beets. Okay, the skin on the beets have a lot of fiber. Okay, so why not use it? As long as you wash it, cut them into these little wedges like this. Okay. Now, you want to make your plate pretty. You can get golden beets. You can get, you have the red beets. You got this different colored beets that kind of lend themselves to the whole experience, right? So we got these beet greens. You eat them all the time. Every time you go to get a mixed green salad at a restaurant, there's always mini beet greens in there. Okay, those little ones. These are the full ones, and no one thinks to cook them a lot. First thing, you don't get a lot of a bunch. So I do a quick saute, a little wilt. All kinds of great vegetables here. There's no reason why to lose those vegetables, okay? So notice we don't have, this is a quick cut. Cut these into 3 or 4, depends how thick they are, okay? So they cook evenly. All right. We'll save the beet greens. We'll come back to that one because we don't need to cook those yet. Okay, I'm going to move this guy out. I need that bowl, so we're going to take these guys out of here. And very simply, we'll put the potatoes and the beets right here. I'm not doing anything to the onions yet. I'm going to take a couple of pieces of this garlic cloves. See all that? I got these nice pieces of of garlic in here, cloves, thrown in there. All right. So now I'll take some thyme and some rosemary. So today's lesson is really about the chicken, but I tell you many times, this is my dinner and the studio's dinner, our staff here. So I make extra, right? And you get to see this whole thing. So I got some olive oil, right? We'll put some black pepper, some rosemary and thyme, okay? I don't need to do too much here. I'm putting the salt in here, okay? And just gently mix one side, mix the other. You don't have to make it complicated. All right, next. So let's take this chicken, the spatchcock chicken, and let's see how it's going. All right, we got a nice color going here, right? So we're going to take our onions, nice and whole, with the skin on them, right? I don't want to crowd it too much. If it's not enough room, then we'll put that in the oven. We'll get a new pan. It looks like I need another pan. So we'll put this guy in the oven. And we'll see how our chicken's doing. See, look at that. Look at the crust on it, right? The salt. It hardened up. We're going to come back. We're going to show that later. That's great. But I'm going to put this over here. All right. So, all right. Listen, we got these vegetables. We got these beets. We got these potatoes. I'm just going to get a pan in the oven for the guys so we can all eat tonight. Simple. Got this piece of onion that kind of stuck around. All right. That's it. We got our stock going here. We have our salt roasted chicken in the oven. Okay. We have all these other guys going over here. And we are looking great. All right. So you saw what I did with the salt crusted chicken, right? It looks kind of good. I checked the temperature in between, and it was only about 120, so I need a little bit more time. But we'll come back to that and show you that. But before we go away, I want to show you something we're going to do next for the chicken, okay? The spatchcock chicken. So we need to season it, right, a little bit better. It needs a little bit more oomph to it. And you can get away with not doing anything if you don't want. But I want to do a dual roll here. I want to do it as a topping, like a basting, if you will. And then I want the rest left over it as more of like a dipping later on. Okay? All right, listen. The other thing I want to do is I want to take my apron off because remember we talked about the raw chicken, and when I sit down, now that I'm done with all the chicken that's raw, I take the apron off, you put it in the wash, put it on the floor. Don't mix it with anything yet until you're ready to wash it. It's done. Now my clothes are good, so when I'm sitting down, I'm not going to have any of the juice on me. All right? So I take my apron, it's out of the way, okay? So it's good if you're going to work with raw chicken, particularly if you're breaking or smashing. It's a good, safe way to do things. Wash up everything. All right, so that's off. Next. So we're going to make a little bit of a, kind of like a, for lack of a better word, like a pesto or like a little topping, right? It's really just an herb mixture of something. So we'll take these stems off. The stems are actually good to eat, particularly with parsley, because they're tender enough and there's a lot of flavor in that way. So, but I like to take the heavier ones off. Once you get most of the heavy ones off, they're really nice and tender. All right, so you can take your parsley here, roll it into a ball. Okay. Take 1 or 2 pieces of garlic. Yes, so this particular one here, we're going to have a little bit of a raw garlic, have a little bite to it that we're going to use on the side later. So we'll smash this, okay? And we'll mix this whole thing together with the oil, and it's going to rub it on the chicken and also use it as a sauce. So I don't want this to burn, so if I put it too far in advance, it will burn. So that's why I'm kind of making this now. And I'm trying to use my time wisely. I come home from work, I split my chicken, I throw it in the oven. While that's cooking halfway, I start getting my vegetables ready, right? So I'm not doing a lot of pre-prep work. All right, so I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to take a little bit of thyme. Now, I don't really like to put raw, I could put rosemary in here, but I don't want that raw sappiness later on. I use it as a topping. So I'm not going to put any rosemary per se right now in this. But I will just throw a piece in the pan a little bit later when it comes time to put this on top so it cooks inside. All right, so I got my thyme, my garlic, parsley, rosemary on the side. Simple, simple. Didn't do too much, nothing crazy. Mix it in here. We're going to put our oil in it. Olive oil. Okay, and now here's the thing. You have a choice. You can do malt or sherry vinegar, whatever you prefer. I like the flavor of the malt vinegar. It's that little warmth that I'm looking for. So I'm going to put a little bit of this for me, whatever you have around. That little acid kind of, oh my God, really makes a big difference. Matter of fact, I should have mentioned to earlier, what a lot of Middle Eastern, particularly Moroccan folks, is when they get a chicken, they rinse it and they sprinkle a little bit of vinegar on it, right? There's a Moroccan vinegar they use, so I think it has a little caramel color in it, something like that. But it rubs it on and kind of denatures it and cleans it. And that's kind of gives a unique flavor. Like this ever so slightly kind of gets absorbed. And it's so nice. And it's a nice warm flavor. That's what I like the acid about it. So a little malt vinegar or sherry vinegar, whatever you prefer, whatever you have, all right? A little pinch of the salt inside here, all right? You don't need, it's not really a saltiness to it. It's just more of a marinade. And we'll do a little bit more pepper. All right, so we talked about the oil. We talked about the vegetables, right? We got our potatoes working, right? We have lemon that we'll use later. We're going to come back to butter in a little bit. That's for a little sauce, all right? Clean up this guy. Herbs here. We got our thermometer. We're going to talk about the temperature in a minute. Okay, so while I'm talking to you guys about this, just want to clean up. So you like in my house, right? I'm over here, I'm cleaning up, I'm talking to you as I'm going, entertaining you a little bit, I hope, right? But let's talk temperature. Let's talk temperature of chicken. Any poultry, you really want to have it. I like to take it out of the oven at 160. It carries over, which means that it continues to cook. And the time you're ready to eat it, it's at 165. Okay, that's where you kind of want it. That's the best and safest way. When you take the temperature of your chicken, particularly either a spatchcock or a whole roasted chicken, you want to take it to the thickest part. But also be careful of pushing all the way through. I know that sounds pretty basic what I'm saying. But a lot of times you push all the way through, and the tip of your thermometer is touching the pan, and you're like, oh, it's done, and it's really not. So you push it in to the fattest part, you take the temperature, you also kind of lightly twist it, just a little pressure, and see if the juices run clear. If the juices running clear, it's good to go. So there's the two things. So you're looking at the temperature-wise, and then you're looking to see if the juices are running clear. Okay. You can also do the method of making sure that it's firm, right? But that doesn't tell you everything. So that's just for a quick knowing how far along you may be gone. Okay. So we got our little herb mixture, right? With that little sprinkle of vinegar, okay? I want to take a look at these guys in here. It smells great. Oh my God. I'm starting to get the beets now. They're starting to come out a little bit. The chicken is rich and deep. I can smell it. And it's there's two chickens in the oven, so they're smelling great in here. Trust me. When we take the salt chicken out, we'll take the crust off. We'll wipe the pan. You may not be able to get as much of the depth of the pan because of the saltiness and maybe the drippings. That's why we have our stock. So we'll cook that down. We'll kind of refresh it. We'll add a little butter to it, and we'll be good to go. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the olive oil to here. It's a tad dry. And I'm about to put this on top of the spatchcock chicken. So that way we get our seasoning. Okay? So let's get that pulled out. And we'll see how that's going. So take a look at that. Doesn't that look great? Smells fantastic. So, see, it's definitely springy back, so it's not even close to being done. But the legs are cooking pretty good. They're actually, I believe, ahead of the breast right now. All right, so we're going to put this parsley, herb, garlic mixture with the vinegar on it. Right, look at that. Now it's going to be nice. Do our little onions here. Remember, we're going to take the skin off later. Okay. We've got this guy going here. So everything I'm touching right now is not raw. It's on the inside. So I know I'm touching here. It's okay. This will be our little topping later. So that's good. All right. So our chicken's ready to go back in the oven. Okay. Now, what I just did to this, and obviously you guys can't smell it, but that little vinegar, that little splash of vinegar going on top of this, that heat just cooked it. I'd smell it immediately. Just kind of hit it. And it smells so good. All right. So we got roast chickens going in the oven. We got a spatchcock. We have a salt roasted. It's going to be a really beautiful chicken dish tonight, roasting. Now, they seem like they're complicated because I'm talking and teaching as I'm going along. But once you get that salt one, if you remember what we did, I just took the chicken, I made that little slit, I put one over the other, I tucked the wings, right? Put them in the pan, made a little salt, put black pepper, put salt and lemon, rubbed it on top. It was nothing to that, right? If you think about it, nothing to it. I stuffed the little herbs and carrot in it inside the cavity. You didn't really need that. But that's okay. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. If you have it, put it. Put it in the oven, let it go. You need, maybe an hour and 15 minutes or so based on the size of the chicken. If you're getting a 6 to 8 pound chicken, it's going to take you a good hour and 15 minutes. But you're done, right? You toast some vegetables in the oven, and you don't worry about it. And you got this great, awesome chicken. Spatchcock is a little work, and if you have a little bit of, if you want to be ambitious, you want to break that and do that stuff, it's kind of fun to do. You do it, you cook it, you make your stock a little bit, right? You get everything going there. We're going to cook this guy down a little faster. And it's a little bit more complicated that way. You put your vegetables in it and you put it in the oven. So individually, they're not a lot of work. Even a spatchcock is just really that little bit of light cutting and you're done. But certainly the salt roasted chicken is not much work to do. There's not even any oil on it. Remember, we didn't put any oil on it. So it's really simple to do. And that's what I wanted to show you. The other components, the beets, the potatoes, this really added to it. So you want to roast the cauliflower, broccoli, you want to make couscous on the side, whatever you're doing, be my guest, that's fine. It's not necessarily about those vegetables. It's really about the two methods of chicken I wanted to teach you. And I think that's the thing, because sometimes we think, oh, I'll make a roast chicken, and it comes out dry. And why does it come out dry? We're afraid you want to cook it to 190 degrees. You don't season it the right way, you don't oil it the right way, it doesn't cook evenly, you didn't get tight. Well, all these different things are why. So that's why I figured it'd be a nice thing to do is teach you guys a roast chicken, okay? And kind of make it a little fun, a little different as well. Now, roast chickens are one of the basic fundamentals. And anytime I see a French chef talk about chicken, I love the way they say it. Chicken, chicken. They say it like that. It makes me want to eat it. I just can't wait. I just love it. So, I follow a lot of chefs and, some of my classic favorite chefs like Jacques Pepin, things like that. It's so nurturing. It's so awesome to watch what they do and when they cook it. And it's just really great to watch that. So, I get inspired by those things. I'm like, oh, I want to cook that. I want to eat that. And that to me is what chicken does to me, a roast chicken. I want to eat it. And that's what I really wanted to showcase to you. I forgot my rosemary here, so I want to throw this guy in the pan, which going to permeate a little bit. So nothing to that one. Let's have them there. So with that said, right now, we're going to let these guys finish cooking. And then when we come back, we'll break them apart. We'll talk about resting, what that means. I'm going to go take a rest. Yes, that's what it means. We're going to take a rest. We're going to come back, and we're going to show you what's next. Okay? So stay tuned, and we'll see you in a bit. Okay, guys, welcome back. All right, so I took the two chickens out of the oven. The salt roasted chicken, as you can see right here, has that nice crust on it. And then the spatchcock chicken right here, nice and open, that nice sear on it, right? The spatchcock chicken took a little bit, about an hour or so. The salt roasted chicken, based on this oven here, was about an hour and a half. If you have a convection oven in your house that has a fan that moves the air, and you're not cooking a lot of stuff in there as well, it may take an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, maybe, things like that. So it really depends on what your oven strength is and what you got going on. The more items you have in your oven, right, it's harder for air to move around, so keep that stuff in mind. So that's why we take a temperature. So I can't tell you for sure what the exact time is, or how many minutes exactly, but I can tell you temperature, right? 160 degrees, okay? So we got a nice thermometer right here. It goes up to 220, right? You put it on the fattest part of the chicken, right? You'll see it going quickly all the way up. If it's going slowly, it's already telling you it's not going to get there. If it moves really quickly and starts to get to the 140 range and it starts to slow down, it's probably going to be closer to where you need it to be, okay? So you let it sit. As I said, it carries over. And then you have the same thing so that the fattest part will be right where your thigh and wing bone, your leg kind of gets there, right? Now, the same thing with the spatchcock chicken, but now, remember I got that little slit that I made earlier so the heat penetrates? And now I got this fat piece of chicken here with breast right here, okay? So I want to check that one. And again, this cooked a lot faster because it's open, right? It's not a closed cavity, right? It's been seared a little bit. We helped it along. Got a nice deep, rich color. We basted it with that nice little that herb garlic mixture, right? You got going there. You got juice from the chicken in there. You got the onions that steamed in here, kind of roasted up. You have that skin, right? There's the skin there. We'll pull those off. You got the skin here. Okay, you got the salt there. I had changed the pans a little while ago because I had no room in here, so I had to move the pan. You didn't see that on TV. All right, I got my stock going over here, reducing down. I just took the regular chicken stock and I wound up putting the bones in here. And interesting enough, I want to show you something that happened. It wasn't intentional, and it was a good thing. Because we used a little bit of the bone and it had a little meat on it, it clarified. It clarified the stock. If you remember looking when I poured the stock, if you go back to the video, the stock was a little cloudy. And what it made me clarify to that, and I'll show you how nice that is, okay? it became nice and clear broth. Okay, so it clarified it. So it's nice and clear. You cook it really, really thin. And chefs really work on trying to get their broths nice and clear. Okay, so it got really clear. And that's a function that the meat on the bone clarified and created a raft, as they call it, and kind of absorbed the impurities that were floating, and it made a nice clear broth. And that's what that is, right? That little oil on top is naturally from the skin, right? But as you can see, it's starting to separate. It's nice and clear down here. It's nice and rich and flavorful. So that's done, and we don't need these bones anymore, okay? But we will add this in here and kind of get a little sauce going. All right, so that came out really nice. That was a nice bonus. It wasn't something I wanted to talk about, but since it was there, I took advantage of it. All right, so now we're going to take the spatchcock out, and we'll get this guy going here. I do want to. We're gonna cook some the beet greens inside this pan, okay? And we're gonna cut this guy up. Now, remember the onions we talked about, right? So we'll take the onions here. And right from the skin off, right? You take the skin right off, and they're kind of cool because they kind of hold together a little bit, right? You got these great onions in here, nice and rustic. Looks awesome. I love this look. They're kind of stuck together a little bit there. I love that, right? Take these beautiful onions. They roasted up. They got steamed a little bit in this natural juice here. This is great juice too. You don't even need the stock on this one because this natural juice that came out, you put a little butter in here and you're good to go. Just use the juice as it is. There's that rosemary that I put in there earlier, right? Kind of nice, permeated it. So you got the skin of the onions coming right off. I didn't peel them, right? So you got this beautiful little onion stuff here, okay? Now, normally I would use this juice, but I don't want to get rid of it. I like this juice. It's good stuff. I'm going to save it. I like it. That is all great flavor on its own. All right, so here's what we're going to do. The chicken's resting. You pull the onions out. You got your juice in the pan. Really simple. But now we're going to cook these beet greens. And all we're going to do is just saute them in this pan. Gently let the little natural juice in here steam them up. Saute them up. You don't really have to do too much at that point. Okay? So that's done essentially in 2 minutes. So we'll let that guy go. All right, so we talked about the spatchcock, and you can see it's done, right? Looks good here. You have this juice here. Come back to this guy in a second. Remember, we're going to do this sauce with the chicken, and this one with the spatchcock, and the butter with the little broth. We'll put it on the salted one. So a couple things happening here. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this meat here. Right off. Notice that this little bone and the skin kind of receded a little bit. It's another sign that you're kind of close to being ready when it recedes it all the way. Okay. Look at that, perfect, beautiful. Put these nice pieces here. I went right down the joint. Okay, right down the joint. Got these nice pieces, beautiful, right? Sitting on those onions, right? Beautiful. Chicken's all done, beautiful, right? It's always a nice bonus when you do that. Now, this one you got a little bit of the breastplate in here. So we'll just cut a couple pieces off and put them on top. And when you get to right where the breastplate is, right there, you put them like that, okay? So you can start to hear the beet greens starting to cook, okay? There you go, put that on top. There's still a little meat on that you can pick out if you like. So what we're doing is just taking this wing bone, cutting around it, have the skin on top. falling down. Nice and hot. You can see it steaming. So I pulled out of the oven and I let it rest, and I'll come back to that in a second. All right, now we got our beautiful little herb and garlic mixture that has the vinegar. Don't forget that little vinegar's in there, kind of puts it all up. All right. So this is beautiful flavor, kind of puts it all out there. There's our spatchcock chicken, ready to go on that one. All right. So now before we get moving, we're going to wilt this guy. Maybe a little touch of stock to steam him up a little bit. A nice fresh stock. So remember I told you that these greens are really good, right? They're the tops of the beet greens. And they're great. So why would we get rid of these? This is great nutrients. It's a little extra good flavor to it, right? A little vegetable. So we'll just put these vegetables here. If you want, you can put the beet greens on top of here in the middle, whatever you prefer. There's all kinds of little fun ways to do it. Okay? So I'm just letting this guy cook out. So listen, we're going to wilt them. We're not cooking them a long time. And the reason why I say that is because I want them vibrant and chewable, right? And I want them to wilt all the way down. And I don't need to do it that way. You can have them a little bit underdone, as we mentioned before. You eat the beet greens in salads all the time. So they just have a nice texture. They hold up a little bit more. And you really don't necessarily need to cook them a long time. Okay? So we'll let that go for a couple minutes. We'll take these bones here, okay? And we're gonna cut the next chicken in a second. Now, I talked about resting. I mentioned resting, didn't really talk about it. But what's important to note about resting is the chicken or anything you're gonna let rest, it's important because your protein reabsorbs the juice. So in other words, if you cut the chicken or steak or your turkey, whatever it is you're cutting that's a big roast, it starts to run and bleed really a lot. All the juice comes out, and you want to get in a dry product. The longer you let it rest, the more juice it will retain. And in the case of a turkey, like for Thanksgiving, you can let it rest for 30 minutes, and when you cut into it, it will be hot as anything. You won't be able to touch it because it's so thick and it carries over. In the case of the chicken, it won't, even 20 minutes later, it will still be hot. All right, so this guy's done. All right, we're going to put these beet greens, we're going to put them right on here. Okay? And before we actually cut the chicken, the regular salt roasted chicken, because I'm letting it rest anyway, so I'm fine with that. I'm going to take our vegetables out. And I think our vegetables are done. Okay? And yeah, they're beautiful. They have a great color, right? We have, look at this, look at that. The potatoes are roasted up nice. The beets are roasted up, okay? They have a nice little crispiness on the bottom. Here's some garlic right there. Okay, you got the rosemary and thyme. And you got some of that onion. Remember those onions earlier? There's that skin on that one. Okay, nice roasted beets. Plus you got the beet greens on the bottom. So this guy doesn't really need, this is beautiful the way it is, right? Okay, I'm gonna put this aside. He's all done. All right, so now we have our nice vegetables, potatoes and beets and beet greens, all kinds of good stuff, right? This because I have this beautiful juice. I'm just gonna hit it a little bit. Again, it's just this is something that gives it a little more flavor. Doesn't hurt. It's all good stuff. Okay, these are the little things that make love, right? I call it love. Put a little love on top. This little juice from the roasted chicken, all that great flavor. Just put a little bit on top of your vegetables, and it kind of has a nice little enhancement. So you got your vegetables done. You got your spatchcock chicken done. Now we're ready for the big boy. Now we're ready for the guy that we did all this work on and wanted to show what was happening, right? So I'm going to shut my oven off. All right, and now this is where the fun part comes in. Check this out. This is going to be really fun. There's your salt crust, right? I better put this over here because here's your salt crust, right? I'm going to take this out. I just pulled it off. Look how it comes off. It's stuck together from the lemon. This is from the lemon. Look at the skin. Right? You got a little salt in here, so you're going to brush it off. Okay? You got your nice little skins of onions. Right? And while we're waiting here, I'm just going to put the little stock in here so I can put a little butter. And that way, we can put a little sauce on top. So if you want to go without the sauce, so the problem with using the salt crust is that you lose a lot of the stuff down here. That's the only negative that I don't like about the salt crust. You lose a lot of this great stuff here. There's some good juice down there. You can taste it, but it's salty. So you got to be careful, right? That's the only thing. So in the case of this is what I like to do. You got the salt crust that we took off, and of course you're going to have some saltiness around. So with a little bit of a paper towel, you just wipe this off, okay? You put your chicken right here. See, now you got all that salt crust. Now you could try and scrape it all out and have this natural juice in there. It's good stuff, but it is salty, so it's a little tougher to work with. So it's just sometimes, for me, it's not work to do all that work. All right, so we got that out of the way. We got this beautiful salt crusted. Look at that. Look at that. It looks perfect. Look at that. It's a little drier. It's actually crispier than you think. So you got the salt here. Take it all out. Now we're going to carve it. All right, so let's go back to this guy. Remember that little knot I made and I put this through? I didn't tie anything, okay? I just put that guy in there, held up. Sometimes they fall off, but it held its shape. That's the key, okay? So we'll cut this guy down here, okay? We'll separate him. This is actually real hot, and this has been resting for a good, all this juice coming out. Now here's another thing about it. If you kind of get closer on here, it's clear, right? This juice is clear. This is an important thing to talk about, because if it's blood in any way, or red or tint, then your chicken's not done. That's another way of telling it, right? So if you don't have a thermometer, you kind of put a little knife in there like that. So we moved it a little bit, we cut into it, there's that juice. Now, it's resting for a good 10 minutes here. Probably gonna need another 10 minutes, it would be better. I'm losing that juice, so that's the point I'm worried about. All right, so let's get back to cutting this guy, okay? And let's get around this one. And he's hot. So we're going to separate it. I'm going to use my other little knife, my bony knife here. All right. So he's real nice and hot. So there's one, all right at the joint here. And I'm not going to pick off the meat here, but you guys can pick off the meat at home, okay? And you have this nice, another wing here. You got the onion mixed in there. Don't forget that guy, right? And don't forget, you got all that nice stuff that we put in stuffed inside. So this guy's nice and hot, beautiful, okay? Chicken comes off the bone, and that's another reason how you know it's ready, okay? I lost my skin there. I want that skin. Believe it or not, your skin will not be salty. Okay, it will not be salty. You know why? Because it made a crust. We picked it up, right? So it's not laying on top of there at all. So now you got this little wing bone. This may be a little bit on the salty side. Okay? You got two on each side, obviously. That may be a little bit. This chicken really held its shape really nice. Now, we'll carve it, just like the way you would carve a turkey. So you put your breast in here. Skin. Got all kinds of good meat over here. See how it tastes. That is so good. That is so rich and deep. Wish you guys could try that with the salt. You're going to try it. You're going to try it at home. Okay? And the chicken is not salty at all, but it has a deeper flavor. So I got these nice little pieces that we're carving. And this came out of the oven about a good solid 10 minutes ago before we went back online here. Okay? And it's still nice. So we got the chicken here. right? I got some good stuff here. I don't want to lose this meat, right? And now, all I'm going to do is get this guy to come up a little bit and very simply put a little butter in here and put this on top. It doesn't need a lot. All I'm looking to do is just make this a little bit creamy, a little bit natural sauce. Now, don't forget, I started with stock. I added some of the neck bones and some of the wing bones, and I kind of refortified. I threw a little thyme in there. I didn't really make it complicated. Just refreshing it. While it's in the oven, that's what I'm doing. This will not, if you notice in the pan, I don't have the pan, I put it over here, but if you notice in the pan, there's really not a lot of juice in here. But you can, and we can do it here, is steal a little bit of this great salty bottom, and just put a little bit in here because it's deep color, okay? It's called a fond, that's what this is. Or the fond came down here. And this will enhance the rest of this right here. So, I got that little stock. Take it off here. I'm going to put the butter. I put a little bit of this natural drippings, kind of a last minute decision to do. Okay. And then this is just going to be lightly drizzled on top. And guys, dinner's done, right? We got a spatchcock chicken. We got a salt roasted chicken. We got the roasted onions, the roasted potatoes, the roasted beets. You made a little bit of a nice little herb topping. Okay. All right, and this is the sauce, very simple. It's just more of a brothy sauce, not really heavy. A little body, a little butter to give it a little body. I put this on top. This is just really luscious. And this salt really makes a big deal. Now, I have, remember, I put a little pepper on it too, right? If you want to use crushed pepper, it's fine. I got the herbs in it. This is so good. All right, so this is what I got for you guys. And you know, you can decorate it all you want. I don't necessarily need to do too much to it, right? I put a little rosemary on top. I put a little bit of parsley on top, right? And you got a nice little fun dinner, right? Roast chicken, made simple, sort of, Kelly way. So, guys, listen, I want to thank you for today. This is a longer process because, you know, we have to cook it in the oven, but it's not a lot of prep. So, you know, you kind of take one for the other. But really, what I want to end up here with, we have a nice little side dish of some roasted beets and roasted potatoes with the sauteed beet greens. We have a spatchcock chicken with an herb topping, roasted onions. And then we have our nice salt roasted chicken with a little butter sauce on top. So, please enjoy. Hope you learned a couple of good tips out of today's show, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.